Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm really happy that you're here. We've been doing these videos for about a month now. We've posted 11 videos, and I'm really excited to share today's stuff because we've been working on it for a while, so I'm excited about that. As always, thank you for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe. Specifically, if there's things that we're doing that your friends might like, it would be great if you told 2 friends. The stuff that we're going to do in the next couple days, next week, is we're going to continue focusing on our U.S. national space policy, but we're going to also kind of dive into our history, both LiftPort's history and the larger space elevator history. So I'm digging up a bunch of photos, a bunch of imagery, so please check that out next week. When we started this channel, when we restarted this channel just a month ago, we had this big plan of a lot of different focused playlists, and we've done a lot of these already. But feedback from y'all, from comments and messages, we changed some stuff. So instead of having the book clubs just fiction and fact, we actually have extended it, created an entirely third book club that's really going to be focused on technical, but we're not going to talk about them right now. Those will be in the second and third videos that we put up today. Today we're just going to be focusing on the fiction one, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So as always, if we're going to start from the Earth and we want to end up on the moon, there's a lot of steps that we have to do. The elevator is a component of all of these other steps, and if this is what we're imagining, there's pieces we have to do along the way. So we always talk about hardware, business, outreach, and framework, and these videos about the book clubs really focus on the outreach component, right? There has to be a way for us to communicate with you. We're doing that on YouTube, but there needs to be a way for you to also communicate back with us. So we're trying this social experiment, if you will, where we're all kind of literally and figuratively on the same page with these book clubs. So fingers crossed. I really have no idea how this is going to play out, but I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. These are all the books that we're going to be tackling. Now, it's going to take a while for us to read all of these things together. Each club is going to be slightly different, but they're all going to run roughly the same way. We'll have about a month, 3 to 6 weeks in between each book, and we'll just kind of cycle through. But the fiction and the fact and the technical will all be roughly following the same cycle. The fiction stuff, I got started here. I got started working in the space field at all because of the science fiction that I read when I was a kid. And so of the 3 sets that we're doing, fiction is certainly the driver for me. That's how I got here. And it always, there's a lot of strong reminiscence about that, positive reminiscence about that. So I won't say that these are all my favorites, but I like all of them, or at least all the ones that I've read. So we're going to start with Crater, and as far as I know, it's the only fiction out there that has the lunar elevator as a really strong component. Now, the lunar elevator is a newer idea compared to the Earth elevator, so that makes some sense. That makes some sense that there are not that many stories out there. Crater is interesting not just because of the content, but also because of the author. Homer Hickam was one of the original they made a story about him and his friends. If you've ever read seen the movie Rocket Boys or read the book October Sky, he is one of the main characters there. And he stayed in the space field for a long time, and from his perspective, creates an interesting story. So I read it about 8 years ago when it first came out. I'm looking forward to rereading it. But I think it's a fun place to start. It's a fun place to begin. And then Dr. Forstchen created this. Now this is focused primarily on the Earth elevator. And there's a lot of, I will say, true ideas in this book. It is both technologically accurate and, whether he meant to or not, whether he knew about it or not, he really does look at what we call the 4 pillars. Hardware, business, outreach, and framework. So I don't know if you've seen our other work. I have actually talked to him several years ago. I don't know if if he had intentionally used our 4 pillars in his title. I've never asked him that, but the book itself really does look at these 4 elements, and I think that's really worthwhile. So I'm excited to reread this one as well. Fountains of Paradise, you could argue that Fountains of Paradise really started the space elevator effort in the world. Now Charles Sheffield and Arthur Clarke came out with a book on the space elevator almost within months of each other. So that was an amazing coincidence. But Arthur Clarke really helped put the idea of the elevator into the psyche of people, into the brains of people. I first read this book back, between 2001, 2, and 3, when I was on the NASA Institute for Advanced Concepts research team on the Earth elevator. And it was so weird to me because I remember reading this book as a kid, and I didn't really like it that much because the elevator seemed so ridiculously far-fetched. It wasn't that interesting a story to me. And then fast forward to read it as an adult actually working on a NASA project for the elevator, that was such a profound shift in my thinking. And it helped me understand that there is a difference between difficult and impossible, and that's when I started understanding it. Was partly through this book. I haven't read it maybe since 2003. So again, really looking forward to tackling this. I will point out something that helped me understand this better. Silskovsky and Artsutinov out in Russia really are credited with being the pioneers of the elevator, but Jerome Pearson, an American about 100 years later, independently, it was about 80 years later, independently invented the Earth elevator. So I've had the great fortune of knowing Jerome Pearson for many years now. I count him as one of our technical advisors on the lunar elevator. And he sat down with Arthur C. Clarke and kind of mapped out what the technology was needed for the Earth elevator. So it may have started in fact, got popularized in fiction, and then that fiction spawned later investigations of fact. So I just love the cyclical nature of this book. Towering Yarns is a bit self-serving. Let's be candid about that. LiftPort created a book in 2005, 2006. It was terrible. It was a terrible book. It was a different social experiment. What we chose to do was take a lot of technical documents around the elevator and to blur them and to add to them by inserting a bunch of fiction stories. So the idea was that you'd have the hard facts, but you'd also have this imaginative, inspirational fiction. The book itself, I'm really proud of, but how the markets dealt with it, how at the time Barnes & Noble dealt with it, they didn't really know what to do with it. So the title is LiftPort, Opening Space to Everyone, and you'll notice that it's not in this book club, because as proud as I am of it, even though it was kind of a technical failure, I didn't want to rehash that. It doesn't really merit the level that we're at now. However, I love the fiction in that original book, and so what we've done is we've taken that original book, repackaged just the fiction, and developed it into an anthology. And I really like this anthology. A little bit of a spoiler warning, there are parts of it that actually choke me up, right? Kind of the inspirational, visionary pieces of this I think are really powerful. And it is humbling to think that I might have the tiniest role in building a system like this. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Very few people have ever read most of the stuff in this book. There are some excerpts from some pretty interesting authors. Kim Stanley Robinson was nice enough to sit down and have a beer with me over this. And it's great. It's a great story. So it's a great set of stories. So I'm really looking forward to your reactions to this. Of all the fiction stories that we're going to be covering, this is the only one I don't know. I'm a big fan of Neal Stephenson. I've read several of his other books. This one has the space elevator in it, and that's almost all that I know. I've ordered the book. I've read the back cover, the cover blurb, but I don't know that much about it. So we're gonna explore this one together. I'm excited about this. The Foundation series is one of my all-time favorite series. I've probably read this 4 or 5 or 6 times since I was a kid. It's one of those things where you read it every 10 years or so, whether you need it or not. So I'm looking forward to this, of course. This doesn't have a space elevator in it. So it was a question whether or not I should put it into this book club or not. I chose to do it because I think there are some lessons in here that are useful to the experience of building something that's never been built before. I think there are some lessons here that are useful to kind of broaden our imagination and talk about the future in a way that we typically don't talk about. So, if you're a diehard space elevator fan, then maybe you don't want to read this one because it doesn't have a space elevator in it. But I really think it's worth the effort. So, of all the books that I have that have space elevator content in them, it was a conscious decision to include this. So I hope you follow along with us. And that can also be said for Heinlein. Moon is a Harsh Mistress is also one of my favorite books. Again, it doesn't have an elevator in it, but it talks about things that really need to be dealt with. It's an interesting tidbit in this story. When it was crafted, we didn't know that the moon had water. We just didn't know that. We didn't know that until just a few years ago. So there are political and sociological implications of water on the moon that are discussed in this book that are kind of eye-opening, and honestly no one ever talks about it. Certainly all the folks that talk about, certainly folks like us who talk about using water ice on the moon and turning it into rocket fuel, should probably consider some of these things. So we include this not because of the elevator, but because what we want to do with an elevator on the moon. So again, we talk about hardware business outreach and framework, and this book is really interested in business outreach and framework. So it's going to be a good read. So that's what we've got for the fiction side. These 7 should keep us busy for many months, many months. And so how do you get involved? Like, what's the process here? So it's really straightforward. Sign up on our website, go to the Get Involved tab on our website at liftport.com. There's a lot of options there, but one of them is going to be the book club. And you know what? Read the books. You know, this isn't 10th, 11th grade literature. No one's going to penalize you if you don't read the books. I was never particularly good at doing homework, but participate, right? No, you're not going to get in trouble if you don't read the books, but it'll be fun. What we really want you to do is to participate, to have this conversation. So the first step is we've got the books. The second step is how are we going to engage after we read these books. So when there's a global virus that's making the world very complicated, community, developing relationships, is harder. And so we want to do that in a way that seems appropriate for the times, a COVID compatible way of communicating, participating. So right now, nobody's going to their friends for a book club. So we're hoping that we can be digital friends and have this book club experience together. If you got questions, of course, please post them in the comments below. And as always, it would be great if you watched some of our other playlists. As we develop more and more content, there's going to be some pretty interesting stuff there. Okay, have a great day. Look forward to interacting with you when we have these book club meetings. All right, take care. Bye-bye.